Hello everybody and welcome along to a brand new video where, well, I think it's time we talk about the Timeless Child. So yes, we got the revelation at the end of Spyfall Part 2 last Sunday about the fact that the whole of Time Lord Society's creation is a lie, that the Master has found out that the Founding Fathers had always lied to the Master and the Doctor and everybody about what had really happened, and it's got something to do with the Timeless Child. So obviously this poses some pretty big questions and big implications for what this could all be about, and how it's going to affect the Doctor and the Master and the whole of the Time Lords and Gallifrey, essentially, because obviously we've also seen that Gallifrey has been destroyed by the Master once again, well, not again by the Master, but destroyed again, and it's all setting up a lot of very, very interesting questions and ideas for the series, or maybe even multiple series to come. So first things first, let's briefly establish what we kind of already know about the creation of Gallifrey and Time Lord Society. As far as we know, based on what's been said mainly in the TV show, but also a little bit into the books, is that there were three Founding Fathers of Time Lord Society, known as Rassilon, who became the president and basically the most powerful Time Lord's ever been, Omega, who was one of the initial founders of it, but then got trapped in the antimatter universe, so kind of was less involved, shall we say, in Time Lord Society from there on in. And also this mysterious third character who was involved in the creation of Time Lord Society, which the implication was that it was something to do with the Doctor, or was the Doctor. This was something that was never quite completed on TV. It was the whole idea that Andrew Cartmel had at the end of the classic series in the late 80s, that they'd been sort of introducing more mystery to the character of the Doctor, but also establishing a bit more of the groundwork of how the Time Lord Society was initially formed, and the Doctor being part of that. And so it's not all officially it's kind of hinted at a lot, but isn't maybe officially sort of set out and established as canon. A lot of the stuff with Rassilon and Omega is, though, there's things like the Eye of Harmony, the sort of power source for the whole of Gallifrey and Time Lord Society, that, well, at least supposedly that's what Rassilon had brought to Gallifrey, and helped to create and set up the whole society that there was there. And so up until now, that's at least what we've been led to believe, and had the only evidence we've had to work with as to what really happened at the beginning of the Time Lords. Now, this idea that the Master's provided us with, that actually this is all a lie, and that there's something to do with this Timeless Child and something completely different in the way that Time Lord Society was set up, presents a lot of questions and a lot of interesting thoughts and theories that we could try and make as to what it's all about. I think certainly the implication is that it's a bad thing that whoever was involved in this Timeless Child and everything that ultimately established Time Society it sounds like they'd done something very bad to create the Time Lords, basically, and so that all the time they've been living as this sort of ethereal beings, this dominant race, that actually they've done some very, very bad stuff to set up the Time Lords and Gallifrey. And I wouldn't be surprised, I feel like that kind of fits in with the character of some of the Time Lords we've seen, certainly people like Rassilon, who clearly is not a very nice chap, let's be real. And certainly I feel like this possible exploration of the storyline presents a good opportunity for the reintroduction of Rassilon into the programme, and maybe even Omega as well, or even the other, unless the Doctor turns out to be the other, or whatever, I don't know. But I feel like it'll be very interesting to see how kind of Chris chooses to play this Timeless Child concept, or whatever's going on with that, off the established canon so far of what Time Lord Society and the creation of it is all about. I think that it will still involve Rassilon at the very least, I feel like. Maybe Rassilon used this Timeless Child to help create Time Lord Society, because the kind of rumour plus fan theory, I think, is that this Timeless Child could be one of two things. Either it's what the Doctor was before she became a Time Lord, and she was some sort of unique person in the universe who could basically regenerate endlessly, was just this being who could never stop regenerating, could just change whatever they like into whatever form they want, was on some distant planet or world, and so that's why she's timeless, the Timeless Child. Maybe she was out of time, and out of the world, sort of the realms of time, and that affecting this person, and they have then been harnessed, and the power of this child has been used to kind of create the Time Lords, introduce the concept of regeneration, bring all of that into the show and into the canon of Gallifrey and Time Lords, and set up that society, maybe being done by the fledgling Gallifreyans who they were before they became the Time Lords. Maybe they were in a real bad state, really struggling. We might get to see, potentially, I guess, some sort of Gallifreyans being Time Lords action, so see them before they became the Time Lords and see what they were like, what they were as a race of people, and then find out what this Timeless Child has to do with it all. I'm a little bit unsure whether I feel like the Timeless Child, who presumably is that woman, that girl we see in the brief flashback in the Doctor's mind, I'm unsure whether I want to commit to saying that's the Doctor, or whether it's just a character involved in the creation of Time Lord Society. who's affecting the whole knowledge that the Doctor knows. I feel like the Doctor's got to have something to do with it, otherwise it's a bit of a pointless story to tell. Yes, it changes the history of the Time Lords, but it also, and maybe makes her feel a bit guilty, but I don't feel like it'd be such a big plot point and have such a big effect if it's not directly related to the Doctor herself and something to explore. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards it being more likely that maybe that this timeless child is the Doctor and will become the Doctor ultimately. Maybe the Doctor is therefore becomes maybe even the first proper Time Lord potentially. But then I don't really know how the Master plays into this, because it feels like he's also kind of been done over in the same way, has been told the same lie, has been following the wrong principles in the same way, and that whole idea and concept, it just presupposes so many questions, I think. Of course, so far we have very little to work with in terms of what we can expect this to be about. We've only had the one reference in Series 11 to the Timeless Child, and then this brief scene at the end of Series 12. Certainly it's pretty major, and I think is going to fundamentally change the canon and the lore of how Gallifrey and Time Lords were created, and how that all started. And I think we will hopefully, fingers crossed, get some proper sort of flashbacky moments looking back on that and finding out how that all happened and how that was all developed in visuals, rather than just hinting at them with the lines of dialogue or stuff like that. I personally think it's something really interesting to explore. I think there's some risks that you don't want to kind of explore it too much and take away too much of the mystery of the Doctor, because you always need to leave the Doctor as a character with an element of mystery about their past, even though we know quite a lot of it so far. So I feel like almost that's the main risk they're going down by doing this storyline. I think that ultimately the storyline will not be popular with some people, but that's just what's going to happen. I mean, people just don't like a female Doctor at the moment, so I feel like that's just a fundamental thing that can't be changed. And people who don't like a female Doctor are not going to like the fact that they're going down and exploring a possibility that there were versions of the Doctor before she maybe became the Doctor, or when she was a different race, wasn't a Time Lord officially, as it were. So I feel like, yeah, there's a lot in there that's going to be controversial potentially, but also could be very, very exciting and interesting and groundbreaking. And for me, I feel like Doctor Who is a show that should always be kind of pushing the boundaries of what the show can do, changing things, doing new things, trying different things out. And I feel like it's something that's never really been gone in depth in the TV show about the creation of the Time Lords. And so to find out that actually what the hints and tidbits that we've got is actually all lies, and that there is a whole new way, the real way that it was all set up, I think is a really interesting thing to explore. And just, as I say, has so many possibilities and so many interesting ideas. I also think I get the impression from a quote I read from Chris Chibnall, or I think it was Jodie Whittaker talking about Chris, or something along those lines yesterday, was the implication that this isn't all going to be wrapped up in Series 12. It certainly sounded like this is going to stretch out over the whole of Chris Chibnall's tenure, however long that may be, and maybe the whole of Jodie's tenure as well as the Doctor, which I personally really, really like. I think that's really, really exciting, that we'll kind of, I'm sure we'll get more explanations and more sort of plot threads kind of coming through the rest of this series, and certainly in the finale. But I also feel like it's quite good and exciting and interesting that it's going to stretch over into the next series, or maybe even 2 series past this, where we're going to have to keep watching, keep coming back, keep theorising until we find out exactly what has happened, what this timeless child is, what's going on. I personally think it works really well. It's a really exciting prospect. It kind of goes back to the Moffat era a little bit in that sense, in terms of introducing the cracks in time, the silence will fall when the question is asked, what is the question? It just sort of gradually built and developed certainly through the Matt Smith era in particular. It was very sort of interconnected. And I'd certainly be quite pleased if we look to do that a little bit in Series 12 and 13, or even 14 if we get to that point with Jodie in the future. I feel like that's all some very exciting prospects there. Ultimately, we don't know who the Timeless Child is. We don't know very much about what to expect from it. We've only got very little hints so far, but I feel like this is going to be a storyline that's going to be developing for a while, and certainly should set up some very interesting conflict and interesting moments in future episodes, or maybe even future series as well. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments below, what is your theory on the Timeless Child, on the creation of Gallifrey? What is Chris going to do with this storyline? What is he going to reveal? What is going to be the ultimate answer and the truth about the creation of Gallifrey? Is the Doctor the Timeless Child? Is she not? What is that all going to be about? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. But that's just about it from this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this little look into the possibilities and the theories surrounding the Timeless Child. I'll be back again very, very soon for another video. So as always, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button if you're brand new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Goodbye.